Recording. All right, so Vikram, let's go ahead and get started here, and anyone else can get the recording for the first bit. So thank you, everyone, so much for joining this morning. I know we all have busy schedules, and it's the start of the week, so glad we could all come together here to take a moment to understand a bit more about Azure data warehousing and sort of what that means for you, with both our overview of it as well as a very helpful demo from Vikram, who's with our team here. Vikram, can you go ahead and hit the next slide? Awesome, thank you. So on the screen here is our plan for today, which you might have already seen from the RSVP, but if you were just forwarded the invite, this is our plan for the afternoon. We're going to go ahead and, like I said, start with that sort of quick overview of sort of what SQL data warehousing on Azure even means, so that we can sort of get that conceptual understanding. And once we do, then we'll go ahead and take that deeper dive into it, as you can see, and understanding some of the nuances and complexities around modernizing data within your infrastructure. And then once we have that understanding all in check, we'll go ahead and hop into the main event of this, which is the demo and within that, looking at data warehousing and SQL from a platform as a service perspective. So we also want to make sure that you all know that this is a very inclusive sort of demo here. So if you have any questions, don't be shy. Feel free to throw those out if you want, or if it's more comfortable for you. You could always leverage the chat box there on the left to hop in your questions, and I'll make sure that Vikram can get to that at some point. But of course, we can also save some for the end. And with that, Vikram, could you hit the next slide, please? Cool. So before we hop into this part right here, I want to go ahead and do a quick introduction for those of you on the call who aren't already familiar with Cyclotron, or maybe you only have a little bit of experience of working with us. We are a Microsoft managed partner, and so what that means is we're one of about a handful or so of partners here on the West Coast who not only have access to special resources like funding and sort of understanding specific release announcements and what's upcoming in terms of Microsoft advancements and updates, but really just sort of taking that sort of third-party perspective as a partner and really giving customers this sort of a consultative value approach where we can really come in and learn your business first and then understand how to connect that to what best makes sense for you and your team. And so with that, we do cover quite an array within the Microsoft suite. Essentially, we cover everything except for Dynamics CRM. So we are a Office 365 and Azure shop. And looking at the latter, that is really what we're hoping to dig into today from specifically that modern data warehousing perspective. But also on the line with me are some very key people. First and foremost, we have Steve, and I'll go ahead and let himself make his introduction.
Hi, yeah, this is Steve Elson. I'm a director of sales at Cyclotron. So long background with services, consulting in Microsoft. We do, as Joseph mentioned, a lot of work around Azure business intelligence and analytics. And a lot of that has grown into new work in the past year, partnering with Rubrik to do a lot of their migration within their platform, and now even more recently a strategic partnership with Snowflake as they've replatformed their data warehousing solutions onto Azure. So we're happy you guys could join us. We can talk through the course of the presentation and demo and get you guys up to speed. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And Vikram, before you go ahead and hop in, also want to make sure that you get introduced. So if you could please do the same.
Sure. Hi, my name is Vikram Chauhan, and I am the data warehousing, data architecture business practice lead for Cyclotron. I support Cyclotron's projects with their clients related to all database related activities, be it infrastructure development, be it data warehousing, or transactional database environment setup and performance tuning, and also supporting business intelligence platforms and performing app migrations onto the Azure cloud.
Awesome, thank you. And Vikram, you can go ahead and take it from here.
Okay, thank you. So I believe we have covered up this slide, correct? Yes, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. So these are basically the list of the customers that we currently have supported with our different types of projects. So I wanted to basically emphasize the focus of the discussion on the data warehousing side. So currently, as we all know that, there are all these new different types of data sources and data systems that the clients are interacting with, be it their business processes or alternatively integration with other B2B applications and their data sets. So there is a lot of challenge which, the organizations are going through around, the volume of data and the type of data sets. The good thing is that, the storage has become cheaper. However, with different types of data platforms and data delivery, it becomes a challenge to basically see how we can unify all of them and put them all together. I don't know how many of you are familiar with, those days of, maintaining everything in an enterprise data warehouse environments and then, producing reports is long gone actually. Customers these days are more interested to look, at real-time reporting coming out of their applications and, the interconnected applications as well. And at Cyclotron, when we speak to our customers and to our clients, we definitely see a lot of these challenges coming over. Not to mention, with all this comes complexity and cost. Now, many times the customer has to bear these costs and, get additional overheads in terms of resources and infrastructure to do it. And we want to basically help them and, try to see how we can leverage the SQL data warehouse platform to support all this. Now, we all know Microsoft Azure provides us with a service called the SQL Data Warehouse, which is an MPP architecture-based system. Traditionally, it used to be available from the Microsoft as an on-prem solution and is very much similar to products like Teradata or Netezza or Greenplum, etc. However, on the on the Microsoft technology stack, SQL Data Warehouse stands itself as an MPP product, and the customer has the capability to engage in different sizing of this specific architecture to be put in. By the virtue of its architecturing and capabilities, it's more beyond a typical relational database. It is a combination of many different units of computing and storage and a hub and spoke based architecture kind of a thing coming together to support massively parallel and very fast processing database system. Cyclotron today is actually supporting a lot of its customer trying to move them over onto the SQL data warehouse environment onto the Azure cloud, and also at the same time trying to provide knowledge and consulting to the companies so that they could basically engage into building up their infrastructure if they looking for a typical data warehouse system on the SQL data warehouse platform. SQL data warehouse, the underlying structure of a relational database is available out here. However, there are some differences in terms of data types and in terms of how the data is stored out here in the SQL data warehouse, but it gives you the capability to be largely scalable. So since it's an Azure product, we don't have to worry about, maintaining the storage around it, maintaining the maintenance factor completely becomes zero. And that's one of the huge selling points to the customers, that you don't have to worry about maintaining any kind of an SLA in terms of the availability, because Microsoft backs its Azure infrastructure and environment and ensures that you have 100% availability, scalability around the setup that you do. It can connect to many different data sources to bring the data from into it, and has its own internal ETL tool called Data Factory, which is very similar to any other tool like SSIS or Informatica or Data Stage for that matter, but internally utilizes JSON and XML as the language for development and for carrying out the extract, transformation, and load part. It also provides you connectivity just like a relational database to itself, and you have the capability to connect it to, Power BI from Microsoft perspective for online reporting, also to your SQL Server reporting services environment, and to other third-party tools like Tableau or, Cognos, etc. Any questions on this slide? Okay. Moving on. The modern day data warehouse framework of how Microsoft is trying to, expand on the Azure data warehouse capability is illustrated in this graphical, presentation. You have many different data sources, which could be relational, they could be ERP, CRM, or even large objects of different kinds. Actually, like your transactional data or like unstructured data sets, and you can also have non-relational or unstructured data sets like something coming from web browsers or social media tweets, etc. And they could be leveraged to be brought into the Azure data warehouse and then further processed utilizing the SQL native SQL language, and then building up the the visualization on top of it. Apart from that, data warehouse also enforces utilization of machine learning because it has direct connectivity to the Azure ML services also for data extraction, data ingestion, and then connectivity for relating the algorithms against the data set. And also, with a self-service model, it gives you the capability to interact and play with it much more efficiently and easily. You have the portal.azure where you can go down and administer the Azure SQL data warehouse, and also at the same time utilize native tools like SQL Server Management Studio to connect to it and perform your development related activities. Moving forward, this basically shows you like a brief architecture description of the SQL data warehouse. Like I said before, like it's a hub and spoke based architecture. So essentially, you have multiple compute nodes, which are basically slaves. You can call them slave units, you can call them computing nodes, and they have the storage associated with them. So imagine like, hundreds of different computers that, are running on like a blade based architecture. And then you have one master or a control node, which basically allocates or deallocates, the responsibility of working on each one of them and, getting them to do. So it is something like that. If I give, a work for somebody to do, say, what is 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1, then the master node is going to give that over to, the 4 different nodes. They will compute with each other and send the data back to the control node, and the control node will add all that together and then push the data over to the result sets back to the user. So it's an architecture which is, and that's why it's called a massively parallel. And with the Azure system, it's scalable. So the good thing is that, depending upon the workload, depending upon the computing that you need, depending upon the power that you need, you have the capability to basically expand onto it or, deprecate your resources based on, your computation. So that's the good part about, managing the SQL Server data warehouse and from an architecture perspective. Any questions so far? Okay. So here is the description of the activities that I just spoke to you about. And it basically demonstrates to you that, the user connects to the appliance, to the control node, and submits the query. The control node query determines the best possible execution plan and then distributes that over to the individual subqueries. And then from there on, it basically takes the next step of identifying the result sets from those queries and taking it up from there and putting it together back to the ultimate result set back up there. And the result set is sent back. Since all this operation is happening parallelly, that is why it gets the name of, massively parallel systems. This is a layout of a star schema-based data warehousing structure where we are looking at a fact table which has, dimensional keys, foreign keys from multiple dimensions like customer, store, time, and product. And here we have the quantity sold and the dollars sold actually. So as you can see from here that, you have the capability of, bringing all the data into the and storing it into your SQL data warehouse MPP structures. And what internally it does is it's going to take all this data and then distribute it evenly or randomly into the different computing nodes. And when a query comes into the SQL data warehouse, it knows exactly where to get the data from and sends the execution paths to those individual computing nodes to get the data from there accordingly. Any questions so far onto it? So one of the things which basically happens as a part of this operation is, like the dimension tables are all replicated because they are smaller in sizes. And the fact table data is actually something, which is, spread across all the different, computing layers. So thereby it knows how to relate the dimensions from each one of them and then getting the data from the sales fact depending upon how it wants to do it. Being it on the Microsoft Azure framework gives it the capability to basically, setting up automatic backups and, like doing geo restores. So disaster recovery is something which the client gets easily set up. So in the event if they are set up in a region of US West and, you want to put your geo restore capabilities at a central location of the US or even in the east side, you can do that. And it gives the capability for the users to basically ensure that, the geo-replication of data is available from a backup and disaster recovery perspective. SQL Data Warehouse works, extremely well with other, analytics platform also when it comes down to, like setting them up. So, at Cyclotron, we have been, working closely with some of our, clients to, implement the dev test environment for them on the Azure Data Warehouse side, helping them up, carry governance out around the setting up of the massively parallel system data, and then also helping them, setting up, ETL processing that can help them, offload some of the archive data over into the Azure Data Warehouse environment as well also. Here's again a same slide on, basically explaining to you the MPP architecture. There are, like I said before, like there are different pricing models available, which gives you the capability to, depending upon what kind of a computing you're looking at, they basically go with what is called as a DWU, which is a data warehousing unit. And a DWU basically is a combination of compute and storage and network resources combined together. So normally, like when we start working with a client, we recommend them with a specific DWU based upon their current scenario, and then assist them with setting up the ramping it up on the DWU to increase it higher or going lower based upon their capabilities. So this is nothing but again explaining around these Azure data warehouse in terms of being it elastic, performance intensive, powered by cloud, and then from a pricing perspective. I'm probably not going to, but yeah, this is actually a small difference between the Amazon Redshift, which is a competitor to the SQL data warehouse platform, and shows you the capabilities of simplicity, elasticity, pause, resume, which is a phenomenal feature actually of the Azure data warehouse. So since the client is actually paying for the usage per hour on the basis of the DWUs that they're consuming, Azure data warehouse provides you the capability to pause your environment. So if the client does not want to do a billing onto it, or if they have very excessive usage and they don't want to do it during the off hours, then they have the capability to pause their data warehouse and then resume it at a subsequent time. Thereby, they're not getting charged for the hours where the data warehouse is lying idle, actually. There are some major differences around, because you're paying for the performance, you're not paying like a fixed cost around how to do that. It provides true SQL support, so Amazon Redshift still has, capabilities of, utilizing some of the primary SQL features of indexing, stored procedures, which being with SQL Data Warehouse, you have the capabilities of utilizing native relational database features, so creating stored procedures or user-defined functions. That's very easily accessible through Data Warehouse. These are here we are kind of outlining some of the Redshift complaints that we have actually seen with some of our existing clients who moved over from Redshift over to the Azure data warehouse. And it's clearly interesting to see some of the drawbacks of, being a very stiff product and not giving the capability to the end user to manage it much more efficiently, and, having some of the basic features of, cloud-based infrastructure management being unavailable, actually. Like I said, since it's an Azure product, it gives you the capability to, carry out less database administration activities. So very less DBA maintenance, 100% uptime guaranteed, a lot of maintenance features are provided, and Microsoft development team is continuously working on, improving the quality of, the list of monitoring tools, metrics, and other capabilities introduced into the portal. So a lot of time, which the DBAs used to basically spend trying to manage the infrastructure can now be done actually automatically. And you don't really have to waste time trying to tune it, trying to, perform a lot of, the maintenance operation which the DBAs were involved in, and try to focus more on, carrying out business development activities. So what Cyclotron offers as a part of some of the core services around Azure data warehouse and database, we specialize in all kinds of SaaS, IaaS, or PaaS database implementation. So if a client is having a hard time managing their data center operations, or alternatively, they want to migrate over to a much more easier environment to manage, then they can definitely do that utilizing the Azure. So we carry out POC activities by showcasing to users moving or migrating one database instance or one Azure data warehouse, and then carrying out one, and then engage then further with the clients to basically carry out all their activities of migrating their environment over to the Azure data warehouse environment.
Yeah, Vikram, and if I could just add to that real quick, just
Please
to
do.
kind of go back to what I was saying at the beginning, folks, because we do have our strong partnership with Microsoft, we're actually also able to leverage incentive funding from Microsoft to offset some of the cost here, so we can get up to, a good majority of the services here, at a pretty nice discount with our connections with Microsoft. So this is a great way to drive your understanding, sort of from this webinar and kind of going into something a little bit more hands-on, and then from there, really understanding what the next steps look like for you to sort of roll out a data warehousing plan of depending on what you're hoping to accomplish.
Yeah, thank you. So we do help our clients migrate over to the Azure, infrastructure, any kind of SQL Server, PaaS databases, or alternatively on the Azure Data Warehouse. We also work with, on reporting and visualization utilizing Power BI. So we assist clients to look into the different options of Power BI services on the service layer, embedding, as well as Power BI premium services and establishing of the Power BI report server and integrating it with their current Power BI practices, or alternatively with third-party reporting tools like Tableau and MicroStrategy, etc. as well. From here on, I would probably take a small bit of time to showcase or demo the environment. Yusuf, is that okay? Yusuf?
Yeah, sorry, I was stuck on mute. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll just showcase the...
Yes.
And don't be shy, people. Please feel free to throw out your questions in the chat box. If you don't feel like pausing the discussion, we can definitely get back to it later towards the end. So hit that chat box and we'll get to it.
Let me know once you can see the portal screen.
Good to go.
Okay. So this is the Cyclotron's portal that we are currently looking at, actually. And give me just a second. So here, as you can see, actually, this is the Azure portal. Here you have the capability of, aligning up resources and connecting to them based upon, the different resources. So here is an example of an Azure SQL data warehouse, which is, established on an Azure SQL data warehouse server, and it's running, and it's live at the moment. Like we were mentioning, you have the geo backup policies that you can configure for, restoring your data. You have monitoring enabled. You have the capability to connect with Visual Studio, directly. Even, run direct queries on the database of your choice, and then also, directly connecting the data source to Power BI for your reporting purposes. It provides you security capabilities of, assessing vulnerabilities with the data, auditing and threats, and also, you can enforce TDE on your data sets for, highly, secure data. So some of the concerns that we actually get from some of the financial clients, or, like secure clients, healthcare clients is, or what happens if my data is out there on the cloud? Actually, will it be secured? Of course, so all the Azure data which is there behind the cloud is all secured through SSL, and also, you have the capabilities of enforcing native security to the data. Yeah, so it has the capability to, enforce all the security, and, you have the capabilities of scaling up your DWU. You also, like I suggested, so you can see here that at the current moment, my alignment is at the DW 100, where I'm paying $1.21 USD per hour, and then I have the capability to scale it to whatever I want to, depending upon my utilization. In the portal, you have the capability of, connecting to, your to monitor, and under monitoring, you have the capability to basically, creating alerts and establishing metrics on your to set up your alerts and your monitoring capabilities on your resources if you want to. Apart from this, you can also establish past databases here. So you have the capability of creating a brand new databases and associating resource groups and computation to these specific databases on there as well. And from a SQL data warehouse perspective, let me actually show you one of the capabilities of loading the data. So it provides you with 3 integration tools. You have your Informatica Intelligent Cloud, you have your Redgate, and also the Azure native data factory tool. So any of these can be leveraged to do that. Here, I'm just opening up the data factory, Azure Data Factory, which is an integration tool that can be leveraged for setting up your data factory, and you have the capability of loading as well as monitoring your individual tasks. I'm just going to go ahead and create up a new data factory. Very, very easy for the administrators to configure all these different utilities and tools in the portal environment. Just take a few seconds to create.
In the meantime, Vikram, can you maybe talk a bit about some of your, personal sort of, favorite aspects of, data factory and sort of things that you're sort of seeing as kind of growing trends in this space right now?
Sure, definitely. Data Factory is a great tool when it comes down to live, streaming data sets. If you want to, connect to them and bring the data over. So, for example, if you have tweets or like feeds or live streaming of data, stock data, data which is continuously like moving actually, and you wanna keep loading the data over into your warehouse, then Data Factory is a great tool for doing something like that actually. And it's good for simple point to target loads, but in case if you want to implement transformations, then it does provide you the capability to do that. However, all the code has to be written in JSON. So one of the best practice or recommendations that we typically, provide to our users or to our clients is, utilize SSIS on an Azure VM for that, and then basically invoke a task in your Data Factory tool to call that SSIS job. So that way it becomes easier to, manage complex workflows. So here you can actually see that, it gives you the capability to connect to many different data sources, Teradata, Sybase, SAP, ODBC, even HDFS file systems, and Amazon Network also. And then also has the capability to then define your destination summary and deployment. So any questions on the Data Factory? Okay, Yusuf, I'll give that back to you then. Thank you.
All right, so that was our demo, everyone. As you can see, we kind of walked through, a high-level overview of the SQL perspective of things, as well as the more engine and under the hood aspects with Data Factory. Again, we can take a deeper dive with you, sort of specifically looking at any strategies that you might already have in the works, or we could also take a step back further and help you develop a strategy with our various incentive offers that we discussed a little bit ago. We can do on-site work with you, because we definitely know that some folks like to have a consultant there with them on site, but we could also pull it back a little bit and provide a little bit more remote services depending on how ingrained you feel you need your partners to be. But either way, this will be a custom experience, like I said, to your strategy, or a strategy that we can make for you. So we'd be more than happy to help pursue that with you, and it would just require working with an account rep like myself at Cyclotron to get that funding for you, and then we can go ahead and begin this new and exciting learning opportunity for you guys. Looks like we did go through the demo a little bit quicker, and we were expecting a few more questions, but that's all right. Hopefully that's just saying that Vikram covered all his bases. Of course, at the beginning, like I mentioned, this is a recorded webinar, so you will have the opportunity to go back and kind of review everything that we covered. But other than that, wanted to take one last pause here to see if there are any other questions. But if not, I will be sending out this webinar once it's closed out and recorded, and I can get that file onto YouTube for everyone. So with that, any last questions here before we go ahead and close out? Going once, going twice. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Hope you got out of this session what you had expected. If not, or if you have any follow-ups, please feel free to respond back to the recording that I send out later today once I can get that onto YouTube. Other than that, hope you all have a great rest of your Monday, and very much looking forward to continuing to work together if and when possible.
Thanks, Joseph.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.